Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's Top 30 Best Episodes of Star Wars The Clone Wars. This video is the conclusion of my coverage of Star Wars The Clone Wars, where I had reviewed every episode of Star Wars The Clone Wars one season at a time. In this video I will count down my 30 favorite episodes of Star Wars The Clone Wars. So, this is something I've been doing on my channel a while now. I'll watch an entire show and review it one season at a time, and then I'll finish up my coverage with super long videos where I count down my favorite and least favorite episodes of the show. I already did a video for my 15 least favorite episodes of the show, and now I'm here to talk about the best of what I consider a really good show. My favorite episodes from Star Wars, The Clone Wars. Now, The Clone Wars was unique because it's the first one of these shows that I've done that I've actually not seen before I did my reviews. Usually, there are shows I've seen dozens of times before, but this time, I was watching it for the first time as I was reviewing it. And, yeah, I gotta say, it did surprise me. I did really enjoy it. At first, I was really iffy on it because it took a while for it to get going. As you'll see, many of the episodes on my list are from the later seasons. But overall, I think this is really quality Star Wars. Really into it. So, yeah, I'm here to talk about my favorite episodes. Now, this is something I discussed when I did my least favorite episode list. Clone Wars is kind of unique because they batch their episodes together, and there's a lot of sagas, 3-parters, 4-parters, and then there's some that stand alone, there's some 2-parters. And so I had the instinct, the idea to just put the 4-parters, put the sagas together and rate them as one. But then when I actually looked at doing that, and for one thing, I couldn't think of 30 episodes. The list would have to be a lot smaller, and I'd have to condense it about a lot more for both lists. And the other thing is that I feel like, even though I'm kind of being repetitive where I'm going to repeat a lot of episodes in the same saga, I do feel like some episodes are better than others within the saga, within the 4-parter or 3-parter. I feel like some episodes are unnecessary and other episodes are really good. For example, there's an episode from a 4-parter that was on my worst list, and then 2 episodes from that same 4-parter are on my best list. So I actually decided it made more sense to split it up, but of course in some cases, which you'll find definitely towards the top of my list, I sort of bunch them together anyway. But most of them I do split up and sort of judge individually, because a lot of them I do think they have their ups and downs, they have their strengths and weaknesses within the 4 or 3-parter. There's one 4-parter, the Krell one, which if I judged as a whole, I would put it lower because I felt like they had too many episodes in it and it kind of dragged. But if I judge each episode individually, the good ones would go much higher because on their own they're amazing episodes, and then the episodes within that 4-parter that I felt dragged or were unnecessary just don't make my top 30. Anyway, regardless of whether or not you agree with me or whatever, it was going to be hard either way, but this is what I decided to do in the end with the Clone Wars. Now, I give a rating. As I was watching the show, I gave a rating between 1 and 10 for every episode I watched, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. And so when I grouped together my top 30 favorite episodes, I grouped together the highest ratings in groups of that rating that I gave it. So that my countdown will start out with my 8 rated episodes, and I'll move over to my 9 rated episodes and my 10 rated episodes. So there'll be a little card that will flash up at the start of each of those batch to tell you what rating I gave the episodes I'm about to list. So, anywho, let's go ahead and get started with my top 30 favorite episodes of Star Wars The Clone Wars. All right, we'll start with my number 30, which is Children of the Force, and this is the third part of a saga that's began season 2. This is season 2, episode 3, where Cad Bane, or whatever his name is, was hired by Darth Sidious to kidnap some younglings who were really, really young, like babies, who the Jedi were going to turn into Jedi. And this is basically about Obi-Wan tracking him down and trying to find him and save some of the younglings. And you see Cad Bane pretend to be a Jedi and steal one of them away, and Obi-Wan's a bit too late. I thought it was a really intense episode. And I don't think I included any other episodes from this saga, but this one I thought was pretty intense. Even though I'm not that huge of a fan of Cad Bane, I thought the back and forth with him in this episode worked a lot. The battle of wits between him and Obi-Wan worked, and how they were able to, at the last minute, save the younglings from like this, Sith torture chamber place. It was super intense, so did really appreciate this episode. So next we'll get into number 29 on my list, which is Tipping Points. This is season 5, episode 5, so I believe this was the final episode in a 4-parter saga in season 4, where that featured Saw Gerrera and his group of rebels that tried to overthrow the separatists that took over their world. And only Ahsoka stayed behind because the Jedi couldn't officially get involved. Now, this was the final episode in the arc where they had the final showdown, where they did ultimately defeat the separatists, but it cost the life of Saw Gerrera's sister, who was leading the resistance, and that was a very powerful death, I may say. I wasn't a huge fan of the romance thing going on between Ahsoka and that one kid, but it kind of worked in this one episode. So yeah, I really appreciated that episode. So next, we'll get over to my number 28, which is Night Sisters, season 3, episode 12. One of the more dark, twisted episodes of the whole entire show, in my opinion. At least in the saga, there's another episode which I think is worse, which I'll get to later. Worse rather than more terrifying. Not worse as in quality. Quality is obviously better since it's higher on my list. But anyway, Night Sisters is the one where Lord Sidious orders Dooku to kill Ventress, and so Ventress, while she's fighting with the Jedi, is almost killed by Dooku himself, by her own master, who she thought was someone on her side, and so she was near death and had no one to turn to, and so returned to the Night Sisters is when we meet the witches, and it's very sort of twisted, and they come up with this twisted plan to get revenge on Dooku. It's a very dark shit, and I really I still contend that this is not really kid-friendly stuff. But anyway, we'll get into my number 27, To Catch a Jedi, Season 5, Episode 19, which gets into the story arc of Ahsoka being wrongfully accused. I didn't put the episode in where she jumped off the dam just like the fugitive, when it went like, I didn't kill my wife, I don't care. Like, it was so much like the fugitive. But that wasn't in this episode. Anyway, To Catch a Jedi is when Ahsoka has to team up with said Ventress, who by this stage is a bounty hunter. Of course, they have their history of being adversaries, but they put their differences aside to try to prove Ahsoka's innocence, and then at the end, Ventress is attacked by a mystery figure, which of course I knew who it is. Obvious to me who it was the whole time, but it was still an intriguing episode, shall we say, as it had a lot of intrigue. Anyway, next we'll move over to my number 25, which is Duchess of Mandalore. And it's actually kind of similar because it also features someone hiding in Coruscant who is trying to be executed, who the leadership want to arrest and think that she did something wrong. This is when the Duchess of Mandalore was falsely again accused of something. But in the meanwhile, assassins of Death Watch try to assassinate her, and Obi-Wan manages to go undercover to help her, and together they help prove her innocence, and she redeems herself and is vindicated. Yeah, very interesting stuff. Also really like that. So now we'll get into my number 25, Crisis on Naboo. This is season 4, episode 18. It rounds up. It is the final episode in what I affectionately call the face-off saga, which is where Obi-Wan Kenobi takes his face off. It's just like the movie Face Off. Anyway, he's gone undercover as this criminal. He faked his own death, and this is the final episode in which they try to execute their plan to assassinate Chancellor Palpatine, and Obi-Wan is, in disguise, still trying to stop them, but of course they catch on to him, and they circumvent him, and then almost succeed in assassinating Palpatine, which ironically we know now would not be such a bad thing. But Obi-Wan manages to stop them in the end, so quite like that episode too. Next, we will get into my number 24, A Distant Echo, Season 7, Episode 2. So this is part of the Bad Batch saga at the start of season 7. This one, I haven't seen the show The Bad Batch, but I can tell you from this 4-part, the characters weren't all that interesting to me. They seemed like a pile of cliches. But this episode was really interesting because this is when Rex teamed up to rescue Echo, whom he believed was dead, but is being used by, I believe it was Admiral Trench, one of those evil people, used to, outsmart the Jedi forces, and because they know their tactics, or mainly the clone troops. And so they go on this mission to rescue him, and Rex goes out of his way to find Echo and save him. And it was very powerful stuff for me. Really liked it. Anyway, we'll move over to my number 23, The Soft War. This is Season 5, Episode 4. This goes along again with that 4-parter with Saw Gerrera, where the rebels are trying to fight off the separatists who took over the world, and they had arrested the rightful, I believe it was a king, and Saw Gerrera tried to rescue him. And there's this military general who is working for the new king that looks like Shrek. This king, I always call him the Shrek King. He looks like an evil prince from Shrek. But anyway, he is this really asshole guy who took over the world, and this episode is really interesting because this is when the military general realizes he's on the wrong side and betrays him, and in public he's humiliated and the whole public is against him, and it's the beginning of his downfall for the Shrek Prince here. So I thought it was pretty powerful. Anyway, we'll move over now to my number 22, Unfinished Business, Season 7, Episode 4. This is getting back to the Bad Batch saga at the start of Season 7. This is the final episode in that saga where Echo proves himself. They're still unsure that he's been twisted or corrupted by the dark side, but it turns out that he isn't, and he works with Rex, and they're able to defeat Admiral Trench, and freaking Anakin just kills the fuck out of him. So they're doing some great Darth Vader foreshadowing, and yeah, overall found this a really great episode. So next we'll get into my number 21, Monster Season 3, Episode 13. Now, this is the episode I alluded to, which is also a part of the same saga with Ventress and the Night Sisters, which I think, to me, even, like, I remember when I first did a review for this episode, I was like, oh my god, this is so not for kids, and everyone was like, oh, just wait till you get to the final season. Yeah, that final season was really mature as well, I agree, but I still contend this is the least appropriate for kids episode in the entire show. I mean, so they have these people who are like slaves, and Ventress like puts them all in these games that will like kill them all just to get the best one. And then there's these two people who are like friends and mentors, and it's like, stick with me and I'll help you. And they capture the Sauvage, I think is his name, and turn him into a monster. And they're like, okay, now kill your best friend apprentice. And he does it. He just fucking kills him. I'm like, this is really fucked up shit. This is way too mature for kids. I'm sorry. To me, this is the least appropriate episode for kids. And it was so twisted and fucked up, and I loved it. Don't want to say what that says about me. But I thought it was a great episode. Anyway, top 20 time now. Let's get into my top 20, starting with my number 20, Conspiracy, which is season 6, episode numero dos, or number 2. So this is the episode that dealt with the saga that began season 6, where someone's chip malfunctions. I believe the name is Tup, one of the clones. His trigger to kill the Jedi is triggered too early. And so the Palpatine and everyone tried to hide the fact because they didn't want the Jedi to find out that they had, designed the clones to turn on them eventually. And so they come up with this, they take it back to the, cloners or whatever, and they try to make these BS excuses. Oh, he's fine. But there's Fives is there as well, and he's realizing that what's going on, and that something's not right here, and he's uncovering the conspiracy with the help of this really cool droid, and trying to be stopped by the cloners. It's really intense stuff, really intriguing stuff, and it really is great foreshadowing for the Order 66 thing. It's got a really dark spin to it too, so quite enjoyed that. So next, where am I now? So next, we'll get into my number 19, Plan of Descent, season 4, episode 9. This is part of the Krell four-parter, where they had the Jedi Krell who took over Rex's troop and led them into battle, and it's very clear and obvious that the Jedi did not give a fuck about the clones and was purposely sabotaging. Now, this is an example I gave before, because I do believe this four-parter went on too long and stretched on too long, because it was kind of obvious that Krell was had no respect for the clones and was kind of evil, and it took him forever to catch on. But it makes sense, particularly in this episode, because there are clones that are designed to follow orders, and so you see the upheaval and the the conflict within certain clones, because other clones saying, no, you shouldn't, dissent from Krell, you should listen to what I say, but the other clones see clearly that there's a way that they can win this war and strike a huge blow, and so they go behind Krell's back to find orders, and they do it, and they strike a huge victory, and Krell wants to kill them anyway. Very powerful stuff. So then we will now get into my number 18, which is The Deserter, season 2, episode 10. Now, this is part of a saga, I believe, but I don't really care much about the rest of the episodes in the saga. I really like this one because they were on a planet and they were trying to fight Grievous or whatever and rescue the natives of the planet from these bad guys or whatever. But in this episode, Rex gets injured, and he has to be cared for by another person who lives there who happens to be a clone, but he's not in the army. He's a deserter, and he's like married and raising a family and trying to convince him that and Rex, of course, at first thinks, oh, this is just a deserter. Fuck him. But he spends time with him and realizes that these clones could be more than their programming, which is, of course, great foreshadowing for Rex, who defies Order 66, but we'll get there. And it was a great character building episode for him, and it was just, to me, it was a really fascinating look into what these clones could be. They are more than just clones. So I thought that was very powerful. So next we'll get into my number 17, Voices, which is season 6, episode 11. This is the first in a 3-parter which features Yoda, where it goes on an adventure. Yoda does. And he starts hearing the voices from Qui-Gon Jinn. It's a foreshadowing the stuff that was just drawn out in a line of Revenge of the Sith, but this goes into a lot more detail about the ability to become Force Ghost and how Yoda basically has to earn it, and the rest of the Jedi Council don't really, agree with this, and so Yoda has to kind of keep the secret from him and do his own thing. So yeah, I really love that. It's really powerful stuff. Next, we'll get into my number 16, Heroes on Both Sides, which is season 3, episode 10. This one, the title comes from the opening crawl of Revenge of the Sith, and something that people sort of always questions: are there really heroes on the side of the Separatists? Well, here we see that there are. There's a really intelligent woman who's friends with Padme who happens to be a Separatist, and they show that there's a Senate for the Separatists that Dooku's the leader of. And, looking at it from Padme's perspective, she's like, oh my god, these people are, following this clearly evil man and letting themselves be manipulated for evil purposes. But then when you think about it, she's doing the same thing. Like the whole Republic is being led by Darth fucking Sidious and for his evil purposes. And when you realize that, you're like, are they really that different after all? And this sort of plays on the differences. And of course, her and Padme try to make peace, and then eventually this is sabotaged by Dooku, because of course Dooku doesn't want peace, and neither does Palpatine, because he's Darth Sidious. And the whole point of this is to create a conflict so that Darth Sidious can seize control of the Senate and the Republic and turn it into an empire, which we've seen Revenge of the Sith, and not to mention the original Star Wars trilogy, so we know this is successful. But it's still fascinating to say, hey, and how the other side, this is when Ahsoka first meets that boy who's a bit annoying in later episodes, but here's really interesting because he has the perspective of the Jedi being evil, which, from my perspective, the Jedi are evil. But that's actually kind of valid, isn't it? They're working for Palpatine, who's Darth Sidious. Anyway, let's move on to my number 15, The Unknown, which is season 6, episode 1. This is the episode that begins the 4-parter where the malfunction happens with the clone Tup, I believe, who tries to kill a Jedi and succeeds. In this episode, he goes crazy. His Order 66 thing is triggered too early, and he's like, kill Jedi, and kills one of the Jedi, and no one can figure out why, and they're like, oh, this is wrong, this is a separatist plot or whatever, but we know what it is. He's meant to do that. It just got triggered too early. So, as I mentioned in the other episode, really fascinating stuff. I thought it was pretty dark and twisted, particularly in this episode. So, love that one. Next, we'll get into my number 14, which is Trespass, Season 1, Episode 15. Now, the only episode from Season 1 that I included in this countdown, because I wasn't a huge fan of Season 1. This episode, it's a standalone. I think it's actually quite powerful because it shows the Jedi team up with this, friendly race that they have this planet in their system that they think is uninhabited, but there turns out to be a primitive civilization that lives there. But the people who own that planet are like, oh, these are savages that need to be killed, and blah 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 blah. And there's this general there who's all, and and Obi-Wan, of course, and Anakin are on board with this, and they think they can make peace with them, and the other guy's like, no, they're savages, kill them. And eventually he gets himself killed, and the senator from that same species is smarter, and she is able to make peace at the risk of her own life. And does the right thing, and they manage to make peace. And this is a very powerful episode in terms of its commentary on colonialism and mistreating indigenous people. So I thought it was quite powerful. It was a really powerful episode, particularly for a kids show. So yeah, I really loved that one. So next we will get into my number 13, The Wrong Jedi, Season 5, Episode 20, the season finale of Season 5. Now I think this episode did have a bad start to it because Ahsoka, this is when she got caught and they still thought that she killed a person. It was kind of fucking obvious she didn't, and it was fucking obvious who did, but they were still under the impression, and they had her, they gave her like the Star Trek 6 Klingon trial where they raised her up and had all the Jedi with the spooky lighting on their face going, guilty, 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 which I thought was a bit ridiculous, but then you get into the episode where Padme is defending Ahsoka and at the Senate, and it's a bit more because she's actually quite smart and can see clearly Ahsoka didn't do it, and then Anakin's completely on her side too and tries to uncover the mystery and kind of interest, and that leads her to the actual Jedi who did it, which of course she fucking did. I figured that out a long time ago. Anyway, and they're able to expose her and clear Ahsoka's name. And the most powerful part of the episode, which is why I put it so high and why I love it so much, is the fact that they're like, oh, Ahsoka, I'm sorry. I don't think they even said I'm sorry. I don't think they even apologized to her. They're like, okay, we were wrong, but no big whoop, you can come back and be a Jedi. And she's like, no, I don't want to be a Jedi. This is the way you treat me. This is the way you treat me on. And you're letting yourselves be. And she could like sense the whole Darth Sidious, underplot. It's like something's not right here. And Anakin's like begging her to stay, and it was like really sad where she's like, no, I'm sorry, I gotta go. Powerful stuff. Very powerful stuff. So yeah, I really enjoyed that episode. Alright, so getting up a notch in quality to my 9 rated episodes, let's start with my number 12, Fugitive, Season 6, Episode 3. Now this continues the story, the saga I mentioned before about Fives trying to uncover the mystery of Tup. Here, this is where Tup's body is taken back to Coruscant, and Fives sort of chases it back there, and he's like on the run. Him and his android, who are now seen as fugitives, are like running all over the place trying to prove something's wrong, and yeah. And Tup pretty much, or 6 or 5, sorry, pretty much figures it out, but of course is not able to expose it because we know the Revenge of the Sith still needs to happen, y'all. Alright, so then we'll get into my number 11, which is Sacrifice, Season 6, Episode 13. This is the season finale of Season 6. Continues the saga I mentioned before with Yoda going on his quest to find out how to communicate or become a Force ghost. Here he's told that he has to go to the home world of the Sith, and that's where freaking Darth Sidious and Dooku like team up and play mind games with his head to try to fuck with his head to get him to kill him, but he outsmarts them, and he is able to sort of uncover the mystery and is set on the path, and he starts to get inklings about what's going to happen with someone turning the dark side, and the dark side is about to take over, and he starts to really realize this, so he realizes the importance of finding the mystery of this Force Ghost thing. It's really powerful stuff. Really loved it. Anyway, we'll now get into my number 10, top 10 territory now. My number 10 favorite episode of the Clone Wars is The Lost Ones, Season 6, Episode 10. This is the episode that dealt with finally covering up a plot hole of Cypher Dyas from Attack of the Clones, which they never made any sense. But here they go into detail about who Cypher Dyas was, and that he was used by Dooku when he was first turning bad to, create the clone army or whatever. And they start to uncover this mystery where they uncover like Cypher Dyas's apprentice or assistant or whoever that used to work with them. But Dooku shows up in time, kills him, and then it also has to do with the Pikes, because the Pikes are the one who had them. So the Pikes are like, oh, screw you, Dooku, we're going to stand up, and Dooku just fucking slashes them and kills them all. And it's really intense, exciting stuff. So yes, really like that episode. Next, we'll get into my number 9 favorite episode of the Clone Wars, and that is Eminence, Season 5, Episode 14, which deals as first part in this amazing 3-parter, which deals with Darth Maul taking over Mandalore, where he teams up with Death Watch. And this is the first episode where he teams up with Death Watch, and they together, like, they go to all the crime syndicates around that part of the galaxy and just intimidate the fuck out of them. And like, some of them are like, okay, yeah, sure, we'll join you, no problem. Or other ones like, no, screw you, we're not gonna join you. And they fucking kill them, and they're like, okay, we'll join you. Or like the Hutts, who are like, and they just fucking kill most of them, and they're like, okay, fine, we'll join. And it was really intense stuff. And then of course they go to Mandalore and fucking just rip through them and remove the Duchess and take over. Wow, powerful stuff, with of course Darth Maul's help. And so next we'll get into my number 8, which is Destiny, Season 6, Episode 12. Now, this gets back to the trilogy with Yoda, but this is my favorite from the trilogy because it deals with him going to this planet where there's these weird super beings who are guiding him on this journey to try to find out the deal with becoming a Force Ghost and becoming one with the light. And he has to... My favorite scene is when he has to fight like the dark version of himself, and they have this like black version, shadow version of Yoda going, defeat you I will. It's really powerful stuff, and then Yoda has to realize that dark side is a part of him, and the only way he can defeat it is realizing that it always will exist, and he has to acknowledge that a dark part of him exists. I fucking love it. Really great stuff. Anyway, we'll now get to my number 7, Pursuit of Peace, which is Season 3, Episode 11. This is the follow-up to Heroes on Both Sides, where Padme's plan to try to make peace with the Separatists falls apart, and they use it instead to deregulate the banks, and so that the banks can charge whatever ridiculous price they want for the war, because of course the war is all about profiteering and feeding the military-industrial complex. I'm sure that's not social commentary about anything that was going on around the mid to late 2000s, completely unrelated to that, and has nothing social commentary to say. It's so powerful! And god damn it, Revenge of the Sith, the whole movie was a critique on the Iraq War, so I love that this episode in particular got into more detail about that, and going into more detail how it's all about finance, it's all about, in not this case, it's not oil, but really it's like deregulating everything so that they can control everything, and greed runs rampant, and that's Darth Sidious' thing. Fucking love it. Anyway, next we will get into my number 6 favorite episode of Clone Wars, and that is Shades of Reason, Season 5, Episode 15. Now, this is the follow-up to Eminence, where we see Darth Maul and Death Watch take over Mandalore, and of course the whole time Darth Maul and Savage are like, oh, we're gonna betray Death Watch, and the whole time the dude from Death Watch is, we're gonna play to betray Darth Maul, and they actually managed to betray Darth Maul first. However, Darth Maul calls out some bullshit rite of passage or whatever, where he gets to actually fight the head dude from Death Watch on man-to-man combat, and is really intense, but Darth Maul wins, and so the rest of Death Watch is like, alright, he's our leader now. But then Bo-Katan and a few others there are like, no, fuck that, we shouldn't follow them, and then they immediately are attacked by them and they have to run away. Super intense stuff. Absolutely loved it. Now we'll get into my number 5. Top 5 now, which you could, in ways, you can actually consider this my number 2, but I'll explain that shortly. My number 5 is Carnage of Krell. So this is the final episode in the Krell 4-parter. It has, not all parts appeared in my top 30 because, as I said, some of it I thought was dragged on too long, but this one I loved. This one I thought was perfect. This was the final one, or I think that may be the second to last one, I can't remember, but it's the one where the clones finally stood up and realized, hey, this Krell is not a guy, not a good guy. He does not have our interests at heart. And they realize this because he sends Rex and his men to fight the rebels that say, oh, they could be disguised as clones. But of course, as they're fighting, he realizes that they're not disguised as clones. They are clones! That he purposely got them to fight each other, to try to kill each other off. And as soon as he did that, they're like, this is, last straw. So they set free the 2 guys who did that descent in the previous episode, and they went to, confront him and be like, yeah, this is fucked up. We're arresting you for treason. And so he goes fucking nuts and with 4 lightsabers and go freaking crazy and wipes through all these clones. And he's like, you are those clones, I'll kill you all. Super intense stuff, but eventually one of the clones finds a way to set a trap for Krell, with one of these native monster thingies, and it works, and they fucking arrest him, and god damn it was so gratifying. So now we'll get into my number 4. Now I will say, I'll give it away basically what my top 4 is. These are the last 4 episodes of the show. The 4-part arc. All the other arcs I kind of separated and put together for how great it is. But this final arc with the 4-parter that ends the entire season, entire show in season 7, is easily my favorites. All 4 of them are my favorites in the entire show. And in fact, I go in order because I think each episode is better than the other. So my number 4 is Old Friends Not Forgotten, the first part, and this saga that ends out the show, because this is when Ahsoka returns with Bo-Katan and a plan to take back Mandalore from Darth Maul, and Anakin's very happy to see Ahsoka and tries to get her to join the Jedi again, but she's not interested. She just wants their help in freeing Mandalore, and so he agrees. But then Obi-Wan's called off for the, because for the events of Revenge of the Sith, and Obi-Wan and Anakin have to leave because they have to go be in that movie. But Anakin convinces Obi-Wan to let Rex lead the team with Ahsoka as an advisor with Bo-Katan and the troops to take back Mandalore. And so they land on Mandalore and start their battle, which is so good, so intense. Absolutely love it. So, number 3 on my list, naturally, is the next episode in the saga, The Phantom Apprentice, Season 7, Episode 10, where Ahsoka faces off against Darth Maul, and and Darth Maul can sense that something's about to go down with the Order 66 in Darth City. She doesn't know exactly what it is at this stage, but he can sense that something's up, so he tries to convince Ahsoka to join him, and this is something I really bought. Now, I talked before about how I didn't really care about Darth Maul, and that's from his appearance in The Phantom Menace, which I think he's overrated. He's just a henchman who looks cool with a couple lightsabers. But the Clone Wars actually fleshed him out and made him an interesting villain. This is something that I think they first accomplished in the three-parter with Eminence and Shades of Reason, where they took over Mandalore and took over the whole syndicate. Like, they gave him personality. They made him a badass, and you see that in full force here in this episode, where he's fighting against Ahsoka, but Ahsoka eventually gets the better of him and captures him, because Obi-Wan says best to capture him rather than kill him because he doesn't stay dead. But of course he won't stay captured either, so I don't know if that's a good alternative. But fuck, so good. And apparently this is probably some of the best battle sequence of the entire show, because apparently they actually got the original actor who played Darth Maul to mocap this stuff for the animation. It's just amazing stuff. So, then we'll get into my number 2, second favorite episode of the Clone Wars, the next episode in the saga, Shattered, Season 7, Episode 11. I almost wanted to put this at number 1, but I might as well just stay in order, but also the final sequence of the final episode was what sold that final episode for me as number 1. But this was very close. It's a very close. In fact, you can consider these, all 4 episodes a tie for number 1, really. But goddamn, this episode Shattered is when Order 66 happens. This is the events of Revenge of the Sith happening, and we see it from Ahsoka's perspective, and we see her, how the troops all painted their helmets to look like her in order to respect her and to commend her, and you see her with Rex right before Order 66 happens, where they're congratulating each other and we appreciate it, we work so well as a team, we're so great, we love you, and then Order 66 happens and they all try to fucking kill her. Oh my god, it was so intense. It's just in the way it was done with the music, and it really sold it. Like, I dare say I like this better than Revenge of the Sith. And then so she goes and frees Darth Maul for the sole purpose of creating chaos, and so she can find out what's happening. She does investigating Fives, finds out about Fives, and is able to disable the chip in Rex to snap him out of it and disengage him from Order 66. But yeah, god, fuck, so good. And now we'll get into my number 1 favorite episode of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, which is, of course, the final episode of the show, the next episode in the arc, Victory and Death, Season 7, Episode 12. So this is where it's basically Rex and Ahsoka are alone. All the other troops are trying to kill them, and eventually they get cornered in the shuttle bay, where I don't think that's what they call it. I'm just a Star Trek guy. But anyway, I'll call it the shuttle bay for lack of a better term. But they get cornered there, and Darth Maul shows up out of nowhere because he's fucking destroyed the hyperdrive, and the ship is crashing towards a planet, and he shows up and steals the ship they were going to use to get out of there, so they have to use these droids to try to outsmart the clones. But then the clones kill the droids. I was so sad. I was like, oh, why do they have to kill the droids? But of course no one's going to survive because the whole ship is crashing, and at first Rex is trying to convince the clones not to kill Ahsoka, but then they want to kill him too because they think he's now in violation of Order 66. And these were all their friends. They were all comrades in battle. These are the closest of blood brothers, and now because of a implanted order, they've all turned on them. It's so tragic, and the whole time Ahsoka's trying not to kill them, and they're just shooting them on stun. But it doesn't really matter because the whole ship ends up crashing, and Ahsoka, through some really amazing action sequences, Ahsoka and Rex survive, and they land on the planet, but the whole other ship is just crashes and kills everyone. So they had to line up like this mass grave with all the helmets that are painted to respect Ahsoka. And god damn it, it was just such a good, powerful ending. So, I think one of the best endings of any show ever, really. And she's looking at this and sees the lightsaber that Anakin gave her, and now she has that knowledge that Anakin has turned to the dark side, and calls, and was helping cause all this. So she just throws it on the ground, and then, if that wasn't heartbreaking enough, we then flash forward to a future where the Empire shows up, with Darth Vader shows up, and he sees all those, the skeletons and the helmet painted to be like Ahsoka, and the lightsaber that he gave Ahsoka, and just picks it up and looks at it, and the music in this scene is just so heartbreaking, so powerful. God, it's just one of the best. I think these 4-part altogether, particularly these last 2 parts, probably better than a lot of the newer Star Wars movies. Definitely better than the newer trilogy. Powerful, powerful stuff. So that is my favorite episode of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. So that's it for my top 30 favorite episodes of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Thank you so much for watching this. Thank you so much if you have watched my whole entire coverage of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Really great getting into this show for the first time and watching it. But wait, there's more! Because next month I will start my watch on Star Wars Rebels, which I know Season 7 of Clone Wars came out after Rebels, but still, I'm going back and watching Rebels, which I have not seen before, so I will be reviewing every episode of Star Wars Rebels one season at a time starting next month. So please join me for that. And if you're not familiar with my channel, please check it out, as I cover many more shows, such as all things Star Trek, all kinds of Star Trek reviews, and reviews on other shows such as Better Call Saul, The Expanse, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.